This soap is one of the most luxurious soaps you will ever use. And if you ever made an olive oil soap that felt very slimy, soft and disappointing, today you will understand why. Today's recipe looks simple, contains only two oils, shea butter and olive oil. No scent, plain unscented soap. When people hear about this recipe, they think it's too soft. It has no bubbles and it has no character whatsoever. I've made hundreds of soaps with many different ingredients like coconut oil, shea butter, castor oil, olive oil, avocado oil. I've used many different additives like charcoal, sea buckthorn oil, and many different essential oils and fragrance oils. None of them were as luxurious as a soap that is made just with olive oil and shea butter. It's a soap that is extremely suitable for people with sensitive skin and want a soap that is gentle and very long lasting. Yes, you heard me right. This soap, if it's made correctly, it's supposed to last very, very long. And it's supposed to not be slimy at all. So I'm gonna show you the way how to make it long lasting, how to avoid the sliminess. If you want a structure of recipes like this, comment the word soap and I'll send you a free guide with a beginner's recipe that explains from start to finish the system that I use to design my own recipes. My aim is not for you to learn how to copy recipes and how to just follow recipes online, but I want you to learn how to design your own recipes. So let us start with the basics. Olive oil is high in oleic acid. It's what gives a lot of conditioning properties to your soap. While shea butter is very high in stearic acid and a bit of palmitic acid, and it's what gives creaminess to your soap. So soaps that are made with a high concentration of olive oil, they are very conditioning and nourishing, and shea butter will actually make your lather slightly creamy, and that will have a really nice feeling on you. This soap is not supposed to bubble a lot. So what causes the bubbles is coconut oil. Coconut oil is high in lauric acid, and what it does is that it gives a lot of cleansiness and a lot of foam and bubbles to your soap. However, the soap that we are making today is not made to bubble and lather a lot, but it's rather made to create this very luxurious, creamy, nourishing and conditioning lather. So in the first part of this recipe, we're going to prepare the lye solution. Then in the second part of the recipe, we're going to prepare our oil and butter. And then in the third part of the recipe, we're going to combine our lye solution with the oils and butters in order to create the soap. I'm going to walk you through the whole procedure. I'm going to talk about how you will make this soap long lasting, and then we're going to touch the topic of curing, which is the most important thing for this recipe here. I'm gonna talk a bit about lye concentration. At the end of this video, I'm gonna also post the recipe. Let's get started. Grab yourself a scale. I like to use a double-digit scale because it's more accurate. We're gonna start with adding the water first. So when you prepare your own lye solution, you should remember two things. Number one, you should always add the lye in the water and never the other way around. Imagine this. So lye, otherwise known as sodium hydroxide, is highly exothermic. So the moment you add your water, if you were to add water to the lye, you will end up having a very highly exothermic reaction that would create a lot of fumes, and it could be very dangerous for you. So first you add the water, and then you add the lye on top. Now, the second rule when you make your lye solution is that you should always wear gloves, and ideally you should be in a well-ventilated area. So that could be somewhere where you have a small suction, or it could be even outside in your garden so that you don't smell all the fumes that are created. If you want to avoid the fumes even more, what you could do is that you could freeze your lye water, so you could have ice cubes instead of room temperature water, and then you could add your lye in the ice cubes. In that way you will end up having a very mild exothermic reaction. So let's go ahead and add our water. So I'm using a 33% lye concentration. So you could also use 35% lye concentration because it's we're making a soap that only has olive oil and shea butter. We don't risk of having any trace acceleration, meaning that we don't risk that our soap butter suddenly solidifies and we cannot pour it into the mold, which could happen when you have some essential oils, some fragrance oils, some other butters in your soap. So this is going to be a very easy to control recipe in that sense. So even if you increase the lye concentration more, you won't end up risking much. So now we're going to add the lye into the water. As I said, I'm going to post the recipe in the end. And here you can see I'm adding the lye directly into the water, but what you could do instead is that you could weigh your lye first into a different bowl and then add that here. So it's added, everything is perfect, and now I'm gonna stir a bit so that the lye dissolves. So I took the lye solution out in the garden to cool down and to avoid any fumes. In the meantime, let's make our oil and butter solution. So first we're gonna weigh our shea butter and then we're gonna melt it down over a double boiler. I actually saw a great tip the other day in one of the soap making videos on YouTube, where there was someone that was using the heat that is produced from the lye solution to melt down the shea butter or the coconut oil, which I found extremely interesting. I've never tried it myself. I'm gonna try it someday, but I thought it was very smart. So now we are gonna go ahead and add shea butter, and we are adding in total 50% shea butter and then 50% olive oil. So I'm gonna go ahead and add the shea butter. So here, when it comes to shea butter, I like to buy refined shea butter. The thing with unrefined shea butter is that it has a very strong odor and its composition changes from batch to batch. So it's always better to buy a refined one because it doesn't smell and the composition is always the same, so you have more consistency there. So here is our shea butter melting. Look at that. So our shea butter is melted, and then we're gonna wait until the temperature drops a bit. We're gonna add our olive oil. Once our oil and butter and our lye solution are at similar temperatures and similar low temperatures, we're gonna mix them together to make the soap. Now let's talk about the mixing temperature. And this is what a lot of people get wrong. If you mix your oils and butters with your lye solution at a very high temperature, let's say 40 degrees Celsius, you might risk that your soap butter will solidify really fast, and then you won't have a lot of time to pour it into your mold. So one way to have better control over your soap butter and your soap pouring is to actually mix your oils and butters and your lye solution at low similar temperature. I usually use 30 degrees Celsius approximately. So this is a good temperature that allows me to have very good control over my soap butter. Now while we wait, I would also like to bring up the curing. Now curing is the most important aspect of this recipe. So during curing, what happens is that a lot of the water that is in the lye solution and that is mixed with oils and butters starts evaporating. So if you actually measure the weight of your soap butter in day 1 and in day 30 and in day 40, it will be much lower after 30 and 40 days. So a lot of the water evaporates, your soap bar becomes harder and eventually more long lasting. But here's the thing, this soap is different because it's made with 50% olive oil. This is a high concentration of olive oil. Now olive oil has very long fatty acid chains compared to coconut oil that has very short fatty acid chains. Now because olive oil chemically has very long fatty acid chains, and when I say olive oil I mean oleic acid, then it takes more time to saponify and turn into soap. And that's the reason why if you use a soap that has a high concentration in olive oil very fast, so after 6 weeks or so, which is the normal curing time, it might feel very slimy in the shower, and that's very annoying, and it's also not a long-lasting soap. So the secret for this recipe is to cure for minimum 6 months. Yes, you heard that right, 6 months is the minimum curing time. I like to cure these soaps for a whole year, because I know if I cure them in a dry and cool place, they will turn out amazing after 1 year. They are very long lasting. The lather is magnificent. It's one of the best lathers I've ever tried. It's very gentle, very nourishing, very creamy. This soap is just amazing. So let's go ahead and add our olive oil. So again, I'm adding 50% olive oil. And now we are ready to mix the oils and lye. But of course, first we're gonna check the temperature. And now we are ready for the most exciting part, which is mixing the oils and lye. So what I'm gonna do now is that I'm gonna pour the lye solution onto the stick blender. And I'm gonna do that to avoid any turbulence and any trapped air to enter the soap batter. Of course, I will also show you a way to remove the trapped air later, so it's not a must to do that. And now we can start mixing. You can see the oils and the water, they slowly start mixing together and they slowly start emulsifying and creating one basically mixture. You can see how beautiful it is. Look at that. Now this right here is what we in soap making call light trace. It's basically when your soap butter drips like that, so it's not completely liquidy, but it starts to get slightly sticky. And now we are ready for the pouring process. So what I'm gonna do now is that I'm going to slightly shake the mold so that it basically goes everywhere. Look at that. So now my butter is going everywhere, and you can see now I'm gonna tap the mold, and that will allow some trapped air to be released as well. Look how beautiful it is. You can already feel like it's going to be a very gentle soap just by looking at the soap butter. And now comes the time of insulation. And then I'm gonna use a towel to insulate it. I'll see you in 24 hours. And we're back. It's been 24 hours. Our soap has been sitting in the mold, and now we're gonna unwrap it, cut it, and stamp it. We're gonna talk about stamping, how to stamp correctly, and then we're gonna let it cure for minimum 6 months. So let's go ahead and do that. So first we are gonna remove the towels. By the way, this is a homemade mold, but I also have the typical ones with silicone. It's just that I like this one because it's very, very long, and I can make very big batches. So what I like to do is that I like to use a peeler to take off the edges here. This is one big soap we just made. I mean, look at this. This is one very big soap. So now our soaps are cut, and let's go ahead and talk about stamping. When I stamp the soaps, what I use is that I use this stamp here that has this wooden handle and this metal part here. So I've noticed that if I use the metal part directly on the soap, the metal part of the stamp will actually oxidize the oils that are on the soap. Most of the times, it doesn't always happen, and therefore I use some plastic membrane as protection so that doesn't happen. I can show you here an example. So this is the soap, and here this is a different type of logo, but I used it and I stamped the soap, and you can see that the oils oxidized right where the stamp is. And of course, this oxidation here is not dangerous. You can still use the soap. It's just that aesthetically it's not looking very beautiful. So basically the oils go rancid and they create what we call in soap making DOS, dreaded orange spots. So one way to avoid these orange spots is to use this parafilm here. Go ahead and stamp, and probably if I waited one more day I wouldn't be able to stamp the soap. It would be too hard. So right now it looks like that. If you stayed until now, thank you so much for watching this far. I hope you really enjoyed this video. If you did, click the subscribe button. And if you want to know more about skincare products, and if you want to know how to design your own recipes and not just follow recipes online, I have an ebook with many different recipes, from soap for the body, for the dishes, for shaving, for the hands, for sensitive skin, shampoo bars, conditioner bar, hand creams, massage candles, lip balms, etc. And it will help you save a lot of time, a lot of money, and help you also have control over what touches your skin. Until then, I'll see you next time. So welcome to the SoapCalc tutorial. So it's pretty simple. First, you choose the type of lye we're going to use. So for this recipe, we're going to use sodium hydroxide. Sodium hydroxide is what leads to hard soap. If you want to make liquid soap or more like soft paste soap, you would use potassium hydroxide. Then for the weight of oils, I'm going to use grams, and I'm going to use 1500. That's what I used for that recipe. For the lye concentration, we used 33%. Anything between 33 and 35% is considered on the normal range. If you're working with very strong essential oils that accelerate trace, you might go down to 29 or 30%. Now superfat, we leave it as it is, 5%, and fragrance, we put it at 0 grams per kilo. Now let's go ahead and find our oils. So first we're gonna find our olive oil. Olive oil is high in oleic acid. It's what adds a lot of conditioning properties to our soap. And then we're gonna go ahead and find our shea butter. Shea butter is high in stearic acid and a bit of palmitic acid as well, and it's what adds creaminess to your lather. Then we're gonna click 50%. Did I put here? Oh, I chose oleic acid. Okay, made a mistake here. Olive oil. There we go. Now it's correct. Olive oil 50% and shea butter 50%. Then I'm gonna click calculate recipe, view or print recipe, and here I get this file. This is very helpful. It will tell you how much water you need to add for your lye solution, how much lye you need to add in that water. Then of course it tells you the oil amount that you need to mix together, and then it also gives you an indication of how your soap will look like and behave. So if we look at the score here, we see hardness 29 to 54, so we are within that range. Cleansing 12 to 22, we are at 0, meaning that we have something that is not very bubbly. It's not bubbly at all because we do not have what? Lauric acid. So lauric acid is 0. and it's what adds a lot of bubbles to the soap. And you can see we are very conditioning, so at the top level almost of conditioning, 68, and very creamy. So this right here will give you a good indication of how your soap will look like. And yes, that's how you use the SoapCalc.net, and hope you guys really enjoyed this video.